in particular. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ninth episode of the Broadcast Club. I am your host this month, Rallana Tricolor.
I am Nakanashi.
And I am Ange Time.
This month, we'll be discussing a rather fun topic. In particular, we're going to be focusing on 18-plus content in visual novels versus all-ages editions. And joining us this month to discuss this topic, we have visual novels regular Zonijo.
Hi there, my name's Zonijo. I'm a moderator of the Div Talk group in the RVN's Discord. And some of you may infamously know me as a member of the Evangelists, those guys that were really annoying on the translation status thread.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago.
Yeah. How did you enjoy W Happiness once it finally came out, Zoni?
It was good. It was definitely good.
Did it live up to all the hype?
Probably not to the hype we tried to give it, but
yeah, I don't think
Okay.
any visual novel in existence could have lived up to the hype that you guys were building in those translation threads. Like, as far as I could tell, whatever that VN was, if it wasn't the second coming of Christ, it would have been a disappointment. So,
Wow, come on, seriously, Rallana? I was going to make a second coming joke. Are you serious?
Mac, I think everyone at this point knows that we're kind of the same person, so it's not really surprising that you'd also make that joke.
It's fair. We'll see if they still think that when we're done here.
No, I don't think anyone will. I think this is going to be a lonely podcast of me just kind of with my head in my hands most of the night. Anyway,
We'll see.
moving right along here. Obviously, the pink elephant in the room, the big topic we've got this time, sex scenes in visual novels and how they fit into the medium. Obviously, VNs are, I mean, I don't want to say unique, but they're a little bit different than certain other aspects of, like, sort of, imported Japanese culture. Like, you don't often find, Japanese RPGs that have lots of, sex in them. Hentai is kind of its own thing, but for whatever reason, VNs are just kind of accepted that they're going to have sexual content in them. It's an expectation. So, where I wanted to start for this episode here is, as I have it in my notes, the big controversy, right? Like, what is the purpose that sex or H scenes actually serve in a visual novel, and how necessary are they, not just in terms of storytelling, but also sales and marketing?
I would say very necessary. You just have to go and ask Minori, who went and released their next big VN with no H scenes, and the Japanese otaku revolted, and they almost went bankrupt from it.
Damn.
yeah.
Well, I guess going back to just VN's history in general, like, as far as I'm aware, visual novels kind of started like as people like to call visual novels quote unquote Chinese porn games, like, that's the meme, but like, pretty sure, like, starting off, like, visual novels, like, at least the Japanese ones, I don't know about other ones, but they pretty much started as just for the particular sake of porn games, because, I don't know, I guess they wanted, I don't know, a different medium than just, doujins or animation or something, so they maybe they thought it was a cool idea to make a pornography game with like 2D girls in it, and I don't know, I guess that's why I feel like that's part of why 18 or 18 plus content like has become like so, I guess, important to fit into any visual novel, even ones that are like really story heavy or even ones that are just like slice of life heavy. So I guess part of why they become necessary.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense as to why they're included. Like, the format is just so conducive to the choose your own heroine, pick your own adventure style, where you can have a variety of routes for a variety of girls to then appeal to, different types of people. I think it makes total sense as to why they have been included. But I guess kind of where I want to go here, and where I have the very obvious bias about, is how necessary they actually are as far as the stories being told.
Well, as far as the story being told, a lot of times, I mean, you'll see it in stuff like Fate Stay Night, where very obviously this whole lore mechanic was included to justify having sex scenes in it.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, at the time, obviously, like, once they got established, Type Moon doesn't have H scenes in their products anymore. Like, Mahoyo doesn't have anything in it. But Tsukihime and Fate Stay Night and their fan discs all do, because the perception was they needed it to get the initial sales. And that's kind of what a lot of people think, what a lot of producers think, is that, well, we need to have this in here so that no matter if they like the story or not, they'll have something that they like in having that adult content. And, I mean, Fate Stay Night in particular really didn't need to be there.
Absolutely.
It totally could have not been there. I don't particularly care for the alternative scenes that they created
those
for
are
the Real
also
Tsundewa
garbage, I think.
release. Those are actually horrible. But like, they weren't necessary for the story. They were necessary for the sales. And that's where a lot of people run into the problems with having the content in VNs in the first place, is that this is very obviously just here to be gratuitous because it's gonna get sales.
And honestly, I feel like, to some extent, Fate Stay Night isn't one of the worst offenders. At the very least, in the Heaven's Feel route, they do actually contribute to the story in a certain way. But I think you're right there that you could basically remove the sex scenes from Fate Stay Night, and they would, like, the actual story itself would change very little, if anything at all.
I think that applies a lot to just the types of VNs it's getting thrown into, especially, like, you know, Fate Stay Night isn't really a route-based VN where you're going for a waifu. It's just a so it's not conducive to the sex scene, to putting sex scenes in there, and you're even starting to see it a lot in, like, I know this isn't really like the realm of you guys, but like in English visual novels, you see a lot of people complaining, you know, when they don't get the funding they need. It's like, oh, I didn't use sex enough, or I didn't put enough H scenes in there, and to a very small, like, start-off industry, like the English visual novel industry, that's very damaging. Like, if this mindset stays, then people are just going to, then it's just going to go the route of the JVNs, where people get really mad when there's no sex scenes and people won't buy the products, and then you're left with a bunch of stories with sex scenes shoveled in there for the sake of sales. Again.
Yeah, well, and I mean, that's the joke in or it was for a while. I don't know if it's still a joke that gets touted a bunch in dev talk. Is that, oh, well, you're not having success with funding, or you're not having a lot of people interested. Well, better just add some porn to your game. Because well, the thing is, like, it you kind of laugh at it, but people will buy it, and
people genuinely believe it.
It even happens in all ages VNs too. Like, recently we had I guess it's not quite as recent for Japanese, but Chaos Child was just released in English recently, which is, by the way, excellent visual novel. However, as having read some of the interviews, the producers felt like there weren't enough heroines in the game, and so after the storyline was written, they added new characters and added heroine routes to this game that otherwise didn't really need them. And while there's no actual, like, sexual content in the game, they still felt the need to sort of shoehorn this stuff in here because they were a little worried that it wouldn't sell if they didn't include that sort of, you know, waifu-based choice system.
So basically, H scenes, I guess we kind of agree that H scenes, as far as how necessary they are, it's more so on the sales side and less so on the actual storytelling side, because I think
you hit on a really good point there, Ange, that I kind of want to make here, is that I actually really dislike the term H scenes to refer to sexual content in visual novels, because I think there, at least in my mind, is something of a distinction between a sex scene, which is something that has been included for the sake of the story, that is an actual has a reason to be there, it's sexual but it's not there for fan service, versus like actual porn or an H scene, as you would commonly say, that is there clearly for the reader and not as much for the story. And I do kind of like draw that line, and I think that while the sales would take a hit if they focused more on having sex scenes rather than H scenes, I think the overall quality of content would actually rise in that process.
Well, I guess in that regard, it heavily depends if you care, like as an author or as a reader, more about the story quality, like as an overall product, versus just, oh well, we have to appeal to those guys who fapped 2D waifus and well,
I mean, I guess it's I think a lot of the authors kind of over on the Japanese side of things, they realize that to them, I think they see H scenes as kind of a necessary evil.
Yeah.
That because a lot of them you'll see a lot of VNs will have multiple authors, obviously, and sometimes multiple authors isn't because they need somebody to pad out the routes, like we were talking about with something like Rewrite on a previous cast, but there are multiple writers because the main author doesn't actually want to write the H scenes. Going back to like Type Moon stuff, I'm pretty sure that Nasu didn't actually write most of the H scenes. I want to say that he actually had Takeuchi write some of them, which I'm sure he was thrilled about because Takeuchi's waifu is Saber.
And it really shows. Like the Type Moon sex scenes are some of the absolute finest in the medium, I would have to say.
Yeah, they are. They are quite something. I read every single one of them. Yay.
Yeah.
Is it true that not that other visual novels also outsource like the H scene writing?
Oh, absolutely.
Like most of them, or like just some of them?
A good part of them do. I know. Because some authors just have no interest in writing that. They know that it needs, quote unquote, to be in there to make the sales, because the expectation is that they'll be there, but they don't want to write them at all. So they'll get some up and coming writer or somebody who is known for writing them. I don't know. Because you'll notice it sometimes. One of the reasons that we see such similar H scenes in things is that there's just like a standard list of things, like we need these things, so this is
paint by numbers, right?
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. It's like, all right, so we have to make sure that her hips are moving on their own.
I mean, I'm okay with that, but
yeah, we gotta make sure that all of these things are in here. And I would not be kind of surprised if there is a list somewhere, maybe not actually physically, but a list in kind of every hentai writer's mind that you need to have all of these things. This is the correct way to write one of these. This is what the people want. And your main author who is writing this complicated story is not gonna wanna do that. Maybe like they'll get to that, and that's the part they dread the most about writing, is writing the H scene.
I mean, to be fair, you can
so
just kind of
why not hire someone else to do it?
Write a bunch of moans, right? It's good enough.
Is it though? It sometimes is.
Well, I would think that most authors just want to tell their story, and then they're like, okay, I've told my story, now here, put some porn in it. So
I don't remember who it was. There was somebody who was writing an 18+ title in one of the dev channels a couple months back, and they had gotten to the point in the script where they had to write the sex scenes, and they're just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But they had to, because they were having them in there to make their sales.
And honestly, I mean, my personal opinion on the matter is that I think part of the problem with having, H scenes as like pornographic scenes in the games is that it takes an already narrow market and it keeps it narrow because there's enough money there to keep it funded. But for example, it can be hard to get new people interested in visual novels from outside the community if they're not just willing to put up with the fact that you're going to have to deal with a lot of sex if you want to get into this medium, even in things where you wouldn't expect it otherwise.
Yeah, it's a weird like situation where like, you know, the sex scenes are basically like written for people who like actually, you know, read or watch hentai like all the time, because, you know, pretty much the dialogue's almost copy pasted for those kind of things. So obviously it appeals to them, but like, you know, not everybody wants, you know, like those wants to see like dojin scenes randomly implanted into a visual novel. They wanted to just read a story, kind of like, you know, if you just, you know, watched a random movie or played a random video game, like most of those don't have, you know, just sex scenes with like cheesy, silly Japanese H dialogue for like 10 minutes or so. Like if they do have sex scenes there, they're usually like, you know, maybe a couple minutes at most, and usually alluded to. So I think that's, if people were to have H or sex scenes in a visual novel that, you know, but don't want it like the H style, they probably would prefer it that way if they were to have them at all. So I think that would be a good way if people wanted to implement sex scenes but still keep it kind of tasteful, I guess.
I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine today who is someone that I introduced into visual novels and has read several now, as he enjoys the medium as well, you know, coming from anime and having, you know, similar interest to me. But, you know, one of the concerns he was expressing to me was that there are big name VNs out there that he was hesitant to actually try picking up because he's not really interested in having the, you know, porn in his story, and so he was saying to me, you know, he's like, I'm not sure I want to read Subahibi or Sayano Uta because they have got sex in them. I was like, okay, first of all, hold on, like those two are actually like good examples in the medium of doing this. But I think it does actually create a stigma where getting some, you know, I'm always a little bit like hesitant to explain to someone that I read visual novels outside, you know, anime is like, yeah, sure, maybe it's a little embarrassing to be like, yeah, I watch anime, but like, I read visual novels, holy shit, not a chance, unless the person I'm talking to, like, I know they also read VNs or are into anime or at least aware of the culture, I would fucking never, because someone's gonna be like, oh, what's a visual novel, and go into Google, and then there's like, oh my god, it's porn, it's full of porn, which I think is not necessarily an accurate picture of what the medium actually has to offer.
I was just looking up visual novel on Google just to see if they actually did describe one. Thankfully, it doesn't. They just kind of just have you know, just like little ADV scenes of random visual novels. So they would probably find that out, like if you know, do a little bit more research of what visual novels are.
God forbid they find Manga Gamer though, because I mean, I'm in level with you guys. I'm doing one of my favorite things right now that I like to do, which is going to Manga Gamer and sorting by popularity just to see what they're currently selling lots of. And
what's winning?
Oh man, currently the top one for now on sale is Lust of the Apartment Wives.
That sounds
it is tagged as hardcore, big boobs, third party NTR. So
okay, never mind.
Good old NTR.
You lost me at the last one there.
Yeah, so that's currently the number one. And I would like to point out that just today, as of this recording, the second half of Umineko went on sale and is being sold on their website, and the number one seller is still Lust of the Apartment Wives. After that, we've got Kuruinu Chapter 2, which is tagged as fantasy and hardcore, followed by Naked Butlers.
Nice, okay.
So all great things here. That one's a BL one, so okay, I'll get a little more of a pass. We've got Mutiny, which is tagged as Big Boobs, Futanari, Third Party, English Origin, Yuri,
Stop.
Kimono Bibi, Puzzle, Multi-OS Monster Girl,
Did you say puzzle?
Puzzle, yes, also tagged as Puzzle.
Okay.
And then at the bottom of the on sale for popularity is Zonijo Princess Evangile W Happiness. Congratulations.
Hooray!
But
Wow.
I mean, just like
later,
looking at this top list right now, it's just like it's all fucking porn. Like it's all fucking porn.
Although in fairness, my number 5 is the pre-orders for Emoto Paradise 2. So
Okay, so I keep going, by the way. On the second page, we've got Kurino Chapter 1, Rant 6, and then finally, third entry on the second page, Umineko Chiru. But then after that, you've got Fashioning Wilderness Lonesome, Huni Pop, and Emoto Paradise, followed by Marina's Cuckolding Report.
Now, I will point out that that might not be very well indicative of how well Chiru is actually selling because
no, I know. I'm just
Steam
bitter,
half
obviously.
of it.
Yeah.
Because of the Steam half of it. Because obviously most of those very adult titles aren't sold on Steam at all.
And I think you're right that there's a much larger portion, I suspect, of people who are going to buy the non-adult VNs are on Steam and not elsewhere. I'm just saying, as far as actually looking at what's currently Manga Gamer is a pretty big name in selling visual novels, I would say, and looking at what they're currently selling is just it makes me wonder what I'm doing with my life.
I mean, if you look at their icon girl at the top, she's kind of like a half-naked girl with humongous boobies. So I mean, that's kind of telling of if you can handle that, and you probably and those are the type of people.
But man,
I'm curious, Ange. Ange, do you know if they released anything of their mascot girl more compromising situations?
Asking for a friend?
Yeah, I'm asking for a friend. Someone was asking me about it earlier, and I was curious. And I thought you'd be the one to go to, Ange.
If they sell merch of the mascot girl?
Yeah, not even merch. Like, do they just have anything of she's maybe a little less?
Less revealing.
No, not less revealing. Yeah. I'm talking about more revealing. Come on.
Oh, my bad. I don't know what I was thinking.
I want to see her chest.
For once, Ange's mind is not on sex. Stop the presses.
I thought for sure
and I'm staying right at it, too.
Away with it.
Ange's like, mascot girl, huh? A little distracted right now.
Yeah, but yeah, probably. But as far as I know, no, I don't believe so. But
interesting.
But who knows? It could be out there. I just haven't looked because I'm not really interested in her.
Yeah,
that's just
and
me.
to be fair,
just asking for a friend. That's all.
Yeah. I have nothing against Manga Gamer. I think they do good work. But can you imagine if you're like, hey, I've got this cool visual novel I want to recommend to you. It's a nice little murder mystery kind of thing called Kara no Shoujo. You should go check it out. And they go to the one place you can legally buy Kara no Shoujo, the Manga Gamer website, and they're like, what the fuck am I getting into right now, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised something like that hasn't had an all ages version on Steam or something, but who knows? I don't know
how you could.
To be fair, I mean, I'd say that Kara no Shoujo is an excellent visual novel, but there's a lot of sex in there, to I think the detriment of the story. But there's a lot of. I mean, Kara no Shoujo would have trouble, I think, on Steam for not just the sexual content, but the amount of disturbing violence in there.
Okay.
But there's a lot of sex in the Kara no Shoujo series, and they really didn't figure out what is the difference between having shitty porn and having sex scenes that add to the story until Kara no Shoujo 2. At which point they were like, "Hang on, guys, we figured this shit out finally." So, yeah, it's like I said, it's just kind of a thing for me where even looking at websites where you can buy visual novels, I would honestly feel a little weird recommending someone Kara no Shoujo if they had to go log on to the Manga Gamer website to go access this shit. Or if I said, hey, go buy Umineko. Or I mean F is also sold in here, which is also a good series. But having to direct someone here to be like, this is where you buy VNs is this is a little bit much, actually.
Well, this is their first impression of the whole genre. And their first impression is lots of boobs, lots of weird fetishy porn.
Yeah.
And
popular categories, big boobs.
Maybe it's better to get that out in the open right away, because they're going to find out sooner or later that that's very prevalent.
And again, this is kind of what I was trying to get at with the idea of narrowing the market down, is that because the market is already focused on this demographic, they sell to this demographic because that's where the money is. And I think that makes it harder to get to a wider appeal, because it's already filtering out the kind of people who would be interested in visual novels, but not interested in visual novels when porn is at the forefront.
Yeah, so I'll be the one to say it. It's kind of odd to me to think of it that way, because one of the reasons I got wrapped up in this genre is because I found one of these 18 plus titles and I was like, hey, I can experience porn this way.
So
I was the same. Like I got into visual novels because I saw a medium where they're not going to shy away from the sex scenes, like where they're not going to just say or where they're not going to just go to bed and it fades out and then it fades back in and it's like, oh, okay, they had sex.
So
am I really the odd one out here? Am I the guy who was just like, I don't think a 25 to 30 hour experience is going to be the most appropriate way to consume pornography?
Well, no. So here's the thing. I said this in a previous cast, and it got cut from the actual release. But one of the things that attracted me to this is that you experience a story for a long time, and you're like, yeah, okay, this is great, and then towards the end, it's like all of a sudden, oh, we finally got the moment where the protagonist ends up with the heroine, and they're an item now, and then they actually do it.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about that is you don't, for some people, and for me when I was starting out with these, sometimes when you finish reading something, you're just like, or watching something or what have you, you're like, yeah, that was pretty good, and I really liked this one female character. I wonder if there's any porn of her. And
so
then you go out, and the best thing is not to have to go to doujins, but to have an official source of it. Because for me, I'm somebody who is something of an art snob sometimes. If it's not exactly like the original, it's just not quite right to me. So having something that is created by the original artist in that fashion is like the holy grail for me as far as finding.
So this kind of transitions to another topic I wanted to bring up, actually, which is, I think, good usage of sex scenes. Because I think if you're looking for it for that particular reason, then obviously some stories are going to be better than others for that one, right? Like, there's plenty of generic copy-paste sex scenes you go into where like, oh man, I'm super excited to see this, heroine or whatever, and then you get in there, and it's literally like, the second the sex scene writing starts, all of her personality goes out the window, she becomes generic heroine X with all of the same fucking dialogue.
Well, sometimes it doesn't matter what the content of the H scene itself is, so much as the build-up to it. Like, the part of visual novels that I really enjoy is that you can spend, 20, 30 hours, or however long a route takes. If it's a 20, 30-hour route, that's a long time, but regardless, you spend that time, getting invested in these characters and getting invested in this relationship, and then it all pays off with, even if it's a not-so-great sex scene, it's more about the feeling beforehand and the feeling going in.
So, my question for you then is, if it's all about the feeling going into it and the feeling beforehand, would it be less impactful for you if they chose to fade to black instead?
Oh, hell yeah.
God.
Absolutely. Yep.
Even if it was garbage written, even if it's talking about how her body is like a mollusk, you would rather have that description than have it just fade to black and have it be the consummation of the relationship without showing you the exact details.
Here's the
I need to see that HCG. I need to see that HCG. That's it.
You see it but that's the thing. You see it in the all ages versions where you go into just. Again, off the top of my head, we'll say Nekopara. You go in, you get to the part where they're going to have sex, and then it fades to black, and then it shows them just in bed, and it's like, I missed something here. I very clearly missed something here.
Did you, though? In most cases, did you, though? Did you really miss something?
Well, yeah. I missed my time for fapping.
You missed...
Come on, bro.
Excuse me. You missed her defenseless anus. My apologies. Don't mind me, I'm just gonna sit here quoting Nastu until you realize that most H scene writing is garbage.
I mean, it is. I'm not gonna defend, every H scene, because some of them will be copy-paste. But it really, for some people, I mean, I'm assuming it's for some people and not just me, it really is just about the build-up and getting attached to these characters, and then seeing them, not shy away when the actual sex happens, because sex, that's a part of life. It happens.
Yeah, it happens. I would like to point out, first of all, that while I am a pretty vocal detractor of sex scenes in general in visual novels, like on the subreddit and otherwise, it's not because I dislike sex scenes in visual novels. And I think there are actually plenty of examples that actually, well, maybe not plenty, that's being a little generous, excuse me. There are examples of visual novels that use these scenes well as a consummation of the relationship in a way that is emotionally rewarding and fulfilling, and not just there to titillate the reader. And
would you say that they provide a greater emotional climax?
I would say that yes, they do. Well, they provide a certain kind of climax, that's for sure. But I would say yes, they provide a greater emotional climax. But I would also say that a poorly written sex scene that is included with a clear attempt to target the reader and not the characters detracts from the experience for me. So, for me at least, the holy grail of like romance visual novel with good sex scenes is F, A Fairy Tale of the Two, where all of the sex scenes happen in such a way that they really truly are the like culmination of the build-up that's been happening for this route. They feel more real than a lot of sex scenes that are written, again, clearly as pornographic, where there are things like, people talking about contraception, or like there are being emotional hang-ups, not being able to get it up, that kind of thing. Like, they actually get into like the real details of these relationships and go beyond just the generic copy-paste sex scenes that exist, and they feel like unique experiences that are tied to these particular characters and really help drive the relationship forward, rather than just being copy-paste bullshit that exists to make the to basically sell the fantasy of fucking your virgin waifu to the average otaku that most of them are.
So as far as like having appropriate age content is concerned, like absolutely there are certain ones that you're kind of going along, it's like it's time for the H scene now, and you get it, and all characterization goes out the window. I have seen those, and those are disappointing for sure. But there are some others that even if the scenes themselves end up being kind of a little bit cut and paste, as long as they keep that characterization, I think for me it's still satisfying. One of the ones that kind of stands out to me in my more recent memory is actually from one of Zoni's favorites, Princess Evangile, in Chiho's route. The build up to their first time is actually really convincing to me, because it's not just like, oh, we're going to do this now. There's a lot of it feels a lot more realistic than just like, oh yeah, by the way, it's time for us to get to this part of the story, so bam, there we go.
I remember us discussing this because I mean I'll take any chance to gush about Princess Evangile, but
I am aware.
I think everyone knows.
Tell me more.
But the thing about Chiyo's first H scene is actually just really well done. Like, it's really well paced. And the whole build up to it is like them actually bothering to go and learn about sex. And it's like, okay, and they're just reading a sexual education book together, and it's strangely sweet. Like,
yeah,
and
it's actually super cute.
It is.
I'm watching this and I'm like, this is adorable.
I'm not trying to decry these kinds of scenes. What I'm trying to claim is that these are in the vast minority, and
totally. No,
we have to go really dig for this shit, and we shouldn't have to. Like, at least my thought process is, if you're going to include a sex scene, it should be something like Chiho from Princess Evangile, or like the scenes in F, or some of some of Amane's scenes in Grisaia, for example, where like this should be the standard, not the exception, and that's my problem with the current state of the medium.
And
tell me more, Ange. Hang on. I wanna leave a little space here, because Ange, I can tell Ange is like, oh boy.
Cry.
Ange is like, let me talk about sex. Ange, take it away.
Well, where do we even begin? I guess, I know this is kind of going back a little bit, but we were talking about our stories earlier, about how we got digital novels, and my first digital novel actually was Fate Stay Night, and I actually did not go in expecting for like the white, like the H scenes and stuff, but like I actually went and just getting a 25-30 store, and I was actually kind of wary of the H scenes, but you know what? I know everyone makes fun of Natsu's writing, and I know it's easy to make fun.
They were awful.
Yes,
they were
easy
awful.
To make fun of.
And they were awful.
But
are we going to get into
bad.
Fins?
But
They were bad, but
I am a man, and there's just the way that sexual writing gets to me, and like I get there's stuff like that, like defenseless anus involved. I was weird, but it also some people
fucking in a shed in the middle of like a fucking battle because we need mana right now.
Oh, okay, that
like,
one was weird.
They're out of place too. Like as I said, some of the ones in Heavens feel out of the story, but most of them, not only are they badly written, they're out of place and shoehorned into the fucking plot lines. They can sell shit. The mana transfers are just, they're so unnecessary.
I don't know. As soon as we entered that cabin in the woods, it was like, oh, I need to take my pants off, don't I?
Oh, excuse me. Hold on. I've been reading the Fate route for 8 hours now, and it's finally no pants time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
no.
I'm not gonna just like turn my head away.
I mean,
when
I think the lesson here is that for future reference, whenever I'm reading a visual novel, I should just take all of my clothes off so that I can be ready for a sex scene at any time.
That's right,
yeah. I mean, generally,
I would recommend those breakaway pants that you can just take off.
Okay, H scene.
As soon
Rip
as
my
you're ready, it's
pants
like, yeah, let's go.
off. All right,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
go.
I mean, there's a thing called zippers. You don't need to take off all your clothes.
Hey, listen.
And
Sometimes
it sounds
zippers
like
get in
you're
the
not
way.
dedicated enough to the sex scenes in these visual novels. That's what I'm getting from you right now.
I have to really get into the situation, so I need to be of a similar clothed state or lack thereof.
If you're wearing pants when you're reading visual novels, you're doing it wrong.
If I'm wearing anything, I mean...
If you're wearing anything, period, you're doing anything wrong. I don't know. But,
I mean, the only thing that I wear when I'm reading visual novels for the most part is my t-shirt that just says Tsundere on it in giant capital letters.
Nice.
That's not a lie. I actually have this shirt. It's a real thing.
But I guess going way back to the point where, like, you were saying, well, it's stupid that they just have to shoehorn stuff in and just ruins the quality. I totally agree, and that in the sense that, and I can understand why people would get genred, but we have to think of the greater good. We have to think of the people who will buy these visual novels, and I know that the quality will be reduced to some people's eyes, but I mean, obviously to me they're a good point. But you just got to have them, and there's always that control button.
Okay, so and here's my question, and what I would like to an experiment that I sadly cannot run. My scientist brain wants to know. Would there be more sales if there were no sex scenes and visual novels didn't have this stigma and they were accessible to a wider audience? Because that is always the nagging question in the back of my mind when I think about this stuff is, who are we losing because they're worried that these scenes exist and that it's weird and just Chinese, we jokingly talk about, them being Chinese porn games, but there are people out there that actually fucking think that. And so that's kind of why I wonder.
They're not completely wrong.
But they're not completely wrong. But, like, how different would the industry be if it wasn't an expectation? If it wasn't when you hear visual novels, you think porn. If that wasn't a mental association that people had, how would the genre or the medium sell differently? Obviously, otaku in Japan, maybe not so much. But I think, in particular, breaking into the Western market, that there are plenty of people that could be visual novel readers that aren't because of this kind of stuff.
Well, the thing is, I think it would go back to, like, why visual novels are created. Like, if, they didn't start off as, like, these porn game, whatever, jumbo, like, would visual novels even, like, would genres as they are now even exist? Like, I would imagine, like,
That's a good question, actually.
If they didn't, like, I would assume they would have to, like, shoehorn gameplay, like, and like Phoenix started digging up, and obviously those do great, like, those sell well, and those are popular, but those are still, like,
people think of them as games, not visual novels. That's why I think.
That's the problem. I think it would be hard to find I mean, obviously there's an audience now because people are aware of it through like the visual novels that have porn in it. But like, if we just let's just say someone like just wrote out a Clannad, or because Clannad doesn't have any such things, but I mean, obviously it's a great story, and a lot of people like it, but.
And hey, you know what? There's really good emotional payoff for all of the relationships without being sex involved. Wow, what do you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I will state, though, that Key's first 2 titles did have porn in them.
We don't talk about Key sex scenes, Nick.
No, we really don't. Oh my God.
Don't talk about Key sex scenes.
Let's leave those alone.
I remember getting to the first one in canon, and I was like, why? I was like, I guess we're doing this now.
I'm not
and it's over.
And I also want to just say here, I'm not saying you can't have an emotional payoff without there being some sex. I'm just saying that the sex can be good emotional payoff.
And again, I like I said, I will always hold F as the epitome of that. Like I'm not ever gonna claim that sex in visual novels has no place there, because I've seen it done well. It has been done well, but now that I've seen it up there, I'm like, I look down the rest of everything else, and I'm just like, I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the real bad H scenes come from the visual novels that aren't focused on the romance aspect, or the actual you're going in this to get a relationship out of it.
Yeah. Usually, there are a couple of exceptions to that. I would say, for example, the sex scenes in... As much as Ghakthun disappointed me, the sex scenes were not a part of that, in that they were mature and handled well, and a part of the actual relationship development in a way that felt not shoehorned in. For Ghakthun, the sex scenes aren't all featuring the main couple. There are other side characters that get together that have their own relationships, that have actual sex scenes in the game that are a part of the plotline and help with their characterization and development in a positive manner.
That's interesting, actually.
Yes.
I would actually want more of that, to be honest.
Yes,
I'm curious.
absolutely agree. In particular, the sex scene, I can't remember her name, but there's one of the girls that is a side character. Her scene in particular was actually excellent, given the context of what was happening in the relationship with the dude that she was fucking. I know that sounds very crude, but it was actually a very bittersweet and emotional and complicated scene that was underscored by the events of the story and really helped define her as a character and really show the way that she valued things in her life. And it was well done. And there are several scenes like this that are not just focused on the main couple. I think the main couple is a whole different problem that I can't get into without spoilers. To be clear, they're very cute together and have a nice little story and have good chemistry. But holy shit, that is a whole different can of worms that I'm not going to get into right here on this podcast. But I would say that, and that's also kind of Ghakthun is on Steam, because they don't really focus on the pornographic nature of it, and so there are sex scenes and they show the sex scenes, but they don't show anything that Steam would disapprove of, and so you can go get the Steam version of that and not have it be all ages, because they have nude CGs, but they're not violating Steam's weird guidelines, and instead they're not just there for the pure fucking porn. So anyway, I think that probably at least wraps up what I had wanted to say about the sort of not just H scenes their purpose, but also some good examples, because again, there are a couple of gemstones hidden out there in the rough. But it does lead into another topic I had wanted to discuss, which is, we've talked about 18 plus versions versus all ages without the sex scenes. What we haven't talked about is the actual release process of putting out a visual novel that has either sexual content or no sexual content, because this can also be something of a complicated process. To use a recent example, DS Irae. Man, God forbid you want the definitive experience of DS Irae. So just a bit of context here to kind of get the ball rolling on this. The original release of DS Irae in Japanese had sex scenes. They then put out an all-ages version So no sex scenes, but they added several side stories, including epilogues to the routes, and an additional ending to one of the routes, which was quite excellent. And then eventually, they, now having come to the West, put out the English version, which right now is just the all ages version, but they are currently in the process of localizing the 18 plus patch, and once that is finished, the English version will be effectively the definitive release of DS Irae, where it has both the sex scenes and the side stories and epilogues that were not present in the 18 plus version in Japan. Anyway, kind of a long intro there, but what I wanted to talk about here is just the concept of having separate versions for VNs, how they do that release process, what it either adds for sales or does for, storyline related things, and just kind of wanted to throw that out there as one example that had kind of an extreme process on it. Thoughts?
18 plus or bust.
Same, true.
Okay, I will go ahead and I will find you a copy of Little Buster's Ecstasy Edition, and I will get you that.
I don't want that, please.
Are you sure? I thought you said
yeah,
18 plus or bust, Snack. I think I'm contractually obligated to now go buy you a copy of that.
Here's the thing. So for my knowledge, if something originally had 18 plus content in it, I would like to have that in my release. But if you shoehorned it in later, like Little Busters, I'm sorry, I'm not really interested in that.
Because I would say, for example, that I have spoken to the translators who worked on DS Irae.
Mm-hmm.
I think the all-ages version of DS Irae is improved for not having the sex scenes in it. 2 of them are just fucking gross. Like, they're real fucking gross and unnecessary.
Most people that I've heard talk about the sex scenes in DS say that, actually, that they really don't add anything to it. Like, they're kind of the definition.
In some cases, they detract.
Yeah, they're like the definition of gratuitous sex scenes in VNs. To, like you say, to the point that sometimes it could detract from the experience. Yeah, I haven't read DS at all yet. It's on my list.
I mean, I guess if there's anything,
scenes, but
if there's anything I want to get across, basically in the entirety of topics I have brought up in this episode, is that you should critically evaluate whether or not a sex scene actually adds things to the story, or you are simply saying that we should have the original edition because it's what the author intended and not because it's the better version of the story.
Well, I think that is the case for a lot of people. Like, it's less a matter of getting the 18 plus version and more a matter of censorship. People don't like it when you take parts out. I don't know if it's the case for like DS Irae, because like you've said, it was originally was it originally in all ages?
No, so it was originally 18 plus. Then they added an all ages version that added additional side stories and epilogues, but did not include sex scenes. And then the English version after the 18 plus patch will have actually all of the content.
Right. So well then
Japan won't, because go fuck themselves, basically.
Wow.
Well, yeah, once the H patch comes out, it's also only going to be in like 4x3 or something like that as well. They're not even going to bother to widescreen it. So, but in that case, it's a matter of like censorship. People want the full product, and if they're not getting the full product, then they feel cheated. They're like, oh well, Japan got the H scenes, so why can't we have the H scenes? And I know I made that sound petulant, but I mean, I'm also kind of in that boat. It feels wrong to cut out parts of the story that were originally there.
I think the thing is, though, that it is often easy to improve a story by removing unnecessary things. And I would say there are plenty of VNs like Fate or Tsukihime or DS Irae where the story is just better if the sex scenes aren't there. Like, it's just objectively better if you remove them.
So I'll jump in with something we haven't talked about at all yet, VN-wise, about something that was probably improved with the removal of H scenes.
Karuna Shoujo?
No, not what I was going to say. Something that actually had the H scenes pulled out of it, and that's Himawari.
Wait, there's a
which-
fucking 18+ version of Himawari? Are you kidding me?
Wasn't
Yeah,
that
the original.
That was the
Doshin
original
release
version.
was
The
18
fucking
plus.
all lolly visual novel? No,
Uh-huh.
nope.
Yep.
I mean, there's plenty of all
Nope.
visual
They
novels,
existed.
so-
Nope.
But
done.
it was the release that we got translated of Himawari is the updated one with better graphics and everything, as opposed to the Dojin graphics that they had. Everything about it just looks so much better. And they changed some of the content of it, and they took out the H scenes, which were 100% gratuitous in the original one. As I was reading it, because I recently finished it, and I liked it a lot, actually, as I was reading it, I kind of picked up on spots and was like, this is probably where the H scene was. And there were a couple spots and was like, this is obviously where the H scene was. But it really, like, I could tell, like, they weren't really needed there. There was no reason to have them there, other than trying to get sales. They served no purpose other than that. And I really didn't miss them when I was reading it. And I don't think a whole lot of people complained about the fact that the release of Himawari that is in English doesn't have any of the H scenes.
In fairness, that is because Himawari does not look like an H scene game, as Roland put it. The one with all the lollies. It's like,
Yeah,
Right,
but
clearly
no,
you
but
haven't
here's-
gotten around the new
as
TBA
much
scene
as
a lot.
I may have shit on Himawari in my time, because man, I definitely made a Photoshop image of the entire cast of Himawari in actual fucking garbage because I did not enjoy that visual novel. If they legitimately removed these things, I think that was a good decision because God, I could not see this VN existing with 18+ content and being better than it is now. Like I think this is the kind of thing that I would like to see more of not necessarily censorship, but maybe we could phrase it as editing. I don't think these things are always necessary or add to the story, and if the writers can remove them, and a lot of people like the English version, the all ages version of Himawari. If they can make a good version of this visual novel that people receive well, is the kind of thing that you could recommend to others, and it doesn't have sexual content in it because they realized that it did not add much, I think that's a good thing.
Oh, it's still very lewd in a lot of spots. It's still very lewd.
No. I didn't read very far because, man, I was just like... I don't know if you guys have seen my Himawari picture of my thoughts on Himawari, but, like...
I don't think I have.
No.
I'd be interested to see
I'll
it at
post
some
it in
point.
Discord and you can laugh at
Yeah,
it.
please do.
Everyone listening will be like, "Ha! What's he talking about? I can't see this."
Yeah, sure, but no, that was the thing. They were. As I was reading, I was like, yeah, this is where the H scene was probably. But I didn't feel like it was. It was very obvious as I was reading it that they were in there because they felt there was a need to have it in the Dojin release. And the thing about the all ages version is obviously the sex still happened.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't try to circumvent it in some way, like I don't know, Fate Stay Night Real Tenua,
Which is still terrible.
They didn't. Yeah, they didn't try to circumvent the fact that it happened. There's like, no, very clearly these characters still got it on, but we're not going to show that to you, and that's okay actually. Like, it didn't feel like it needed to be shown. I didn't feel like I was missing anything by it not being shown, other than it might have been okay to have a sex scene there because.
well, I mean,
anyway,
yeah.
Go ahead.
For my money, when it comes to all ages versus 18+, ideally you'd have both. Like, you'd have, you'd have the all ages so that if you wanted to, you could say to your friends, if you want to get into visual novels, here's something a bit safer, like without the porn, and then once you've got them hooked on the safe stuff, you give them the porn. But
We've got porn dealer Zonijo up in here peddling shitty anime porn to his friends.
I just
Oh
realized
my
how that
God.
came out. But
I thought I knew you.
Did you?
that is not what
Apparently
I
not.
I mean,
But
That's the kind of comment I would expect from Ange. Like, damn.
but like what I'm trying to say is, like, ideally you'd have both, but what I like about a few all ages versions, and I'm going to bring it up again, Princess Evangile, is that while they did cut out the H scenes, they put in more CGs to make up for it. Like, they were like, okay, we're gonna...
so you're going the Grisaia route.
Yeah, you cut the content, but you add new content to kind of make up for it. And while the all-ages version of Princess Evangile still aggravates me because they cut out a really, really funny scene because they just couldn't show it, because it was literally just a girl reading porn in a monotone voice, but it was hilarious. I do like that they added something in there to make up for the lack of the 8 scenes. But that's what I'm saying is I'd rather, if you're going to do an all ages version, don't just slice bits and pieces off and then say it's an all ages version.
That does lead to some fragmentation in the communities, though, because I know, for example, there are some people who have trouble with the fact that if they want to read Grisaia, they have to choose between the sex scenes or the new CGs, and they don't get both.
That was one of my big problems with, personally, with the Grisaia all ages release, is that there were these added things. There were added CGs and stuff. Like, there's a CG like in the first 10 minutes of it that is only in the all ages version. It doesn't actually exist in the 18 plus version. And I was like, what the fuck? It just seems like we have. It's like you're saying with the DS release, once it comes out, that has everything in it, it'll be the definitive version. Like, we can't have a proper definitive version of Grisaia because we have exclusive content to each version.
Yeah.
And that I have a problem with. I don't mind if you sub in something else, like, oh yeah, the H scene is going to happen here, but we're going to have something else here, or maybe we'll show you another CG or something, and you can look it up. Because that's what I think Princess Evangile does. Yeah, that's all Princess Evangile. There are alternative CGs for those moments that are still a little maybe risque, but
they didn't add anything else.
Yeah,
the basic stuff. They just replaced all the H scenes with.
But something like that, where it's like, hey, no, this is actually something that just happens in the core of the story that we're just going to have extra for the people who are like, nah, I'm too good for porn.
I'll just say the absolute best way to appeal to both people is there's an option in Commu where there's literally an in-game option where it literally says enable sex scenes on or off, and just have it off by default. And then I did a test, and it, like, when there's an H that's supposed to happen, it, like, does the fade to black thing that usually happens when all ages versions when sex is operated. And then I went back and enabled it, and it shows the thing as usual. I'm like, okay, well, wouldn't that just be the option that appeals to everybody, but just have it off by default? So I don't know, does it throw off the people who don't want it, I guess?
Reminds me of the Katawa Shoujo disable sex scenes option, and people are like, don't worry, all of the sex scenes are disabled anyway.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'd say just something, keep it simple, like a fade out, or like what Princess Evangile did, just like have some kind of, I don't know, other CG to distract you, and then just fade out. But I don't know, that's other than that, if they do, but I know the problem is a lot of visual novels don't do that, and if we have to do this 18 plus and all ages releases, I'm okay as long as the options for both exist, I guess. If you just have one but not the other, I don't know. I guess it'd be nice to have more options for people, so people have the option of choosing, not just kind of forcing one, because I know people have different opinions on stuff. So
I think people should just learn to be less prude and accept that sex is a beautiful and natural thing.
Much like mollusks. Much like mollusks. And defenseless anuses? Ani?
I think it's anuses. I'm just gonna say.
It's again. My Latin is failing me. I know that is a word.
Well, if you follow Latin, it'd probably be ani. Yeah.
Well, it depends if it's first declension or fourth declension.
Can we not make me remember high school Latin?
Anus is in fact second declension, so it is ani.
Oh my god!
And now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
I'm glad that I didn't actually lose that conversation at any point. I followed every last bit of that. Thank you, Latin.
Yeah. Listen, if anything I've learned useful from Latin is all the dirty stuff, so it's like...
Yeah, hey, that's what really matters.
But yeah, I don't think most people would disagree with you on the idea that we should have both. Like, I'm sure there are a few, like, all ages purists or censorship purists who are like, no, it shouldn't be all ages. That's not how it is. But
oh
yeah,
man,
no,
the fucking
like...
Subahibi debate that happened recently was just like, are you kidding me, guys? They removed one CG and no dialogue, and they removed it because they literally couldn't sell it in some countries because it was fucking bestiality that affected the story in no way having that CG. And at a certain point, I mean, I think certain people that are crying about censorship stuff aren't actually, like, critically evaluating whether or not these things are good for the story and are just claiming, oh, it's censorship, therefore it's bad, which is not always the case. Like I said, it's editing, right? Editing.
Hey man, no dog, no bye.
Like, I read that scene, and I'm like, I don't feel like anything was removed by not having a CG and just having text here. Honestly, like, it probably just would have made me feel even more uncomfortable, which I was already feeling uncomfortable enough. Like,
well, maybe that's the idea. You didn't get the full uncomfortable
I didn't.
experience.
No, I guarantee you, I got the full uncomfortable Subahibi experience. Okay, buddy, I read that fucking visual novel.
You missed out on that one moment that could have been more uncomfortable.
It could have been more uncomfortable,
actually
but
read the
that
real
wasn't
Subahibi.
even the most uncomfortable moment in the visual novel, so let's not go there, okay, buddy?
Well, because the CG was removed, obviously.
Even if the CG had been there, there is more disturbing shit in Subahibi, okay? Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that.
I'm done.
If you want to know, you should read Subahibi, because Subahibi is excellent, but also, like, what am I doing with my life right now that I'm reading this shit?
I can't in good conscience read it, man. No dog, no bye.
Oh my god. Okay, so I would like to point out that, for example, there was a thread a few weeks, maybe a month ago, where someone was like, I'm waiting for the 18-plus version of DS Irae. And Koala was like, you should just read the all-ages version, it's just as good. And Ange, you were like, he can read whatever version he damn well pleases. And I was like, that seems a little bit maybe out of place. Because again, as I've been trying to comment here, is that, like, not all of the time is having the 18-plus version like a strict improvement, even if you want to believe, oh, it's the original, therefore it's better. That is absolutely not always the case.
So before Ange gets a chance to talk, let me rush to his defense here. I mean, it's true, though. People can read things in the way that they want. Sure, maybe that the 18-plus version doesn't add anything, and you say, well, you know,
but
it's not going to be...
my complaint here was that...
Okay, so the thing is here, I mean, there's this thing that happens frequently in the community where people will jump in and be like, well, I already have this opinion, and I'm going to tell you my opinion, and I think it's the right opinion, and it comes off that way as being kind of, this is a thing that I believe and a lot of other people believe, and so this is okay to do this. You won't be missing out on anything by this. And it's like, well, you know, sure, maybe I won't be missing out on anything by reading DS without the sex scenes, but, you know, maybe I want to see those.
Maybe. On the other hand,
and I'm willing to wait.
I can't wait for you to read these sex scenes that I know exist and be like, that was fucking disgusting, and I wish I hadn't read that. I'm gonna sit there, tapping my forehead like, if only you read the all ages version, that was just better.
That's the thing. So if I read the all ages version right now, great. I'd read the all ages version, and I'd probably really enjoy Diaz because it seems like a story that I'm gonna really enjoy. But once the patch comes out with the 18-plus content, I will go back and look at it because I'm curious. I was like, you know what? I'm going to save myself the time and do it all at once. Yeah,
that's fair.
For me. And that's why I am waiting.
I just had Father Ace tell me what was in those scenes, and I was like, wow, I've missed nothing. I've missed literally nothing.
So, Ange, if you want to comment on that, go ahead now.
I mean, yeah, it's basically what you said. I mean, maybe I did overreact, but I was probably just like the inner rage that kind of just comes out of it.
Like, I respect your passion for this shit, but the way I kind of look at VNs especially, I mean, they're such long works in general that it's kind of a similar thing with books, where a lot of the way you find new things is recommendation based. For example, I'm not afraid to recommend to everyone, the three of you guys with me right here, and anyone who's listening, if you read Chaos Child, you don't need to read, and should probably not read 3 out of the 4 heroine routes, unless you want to waste, 6 hours of your life for shit that's not relevant to the story. And I think part of what goes into VNs as a medium in the community is that because people base things heavily on recommendations, sometimes people will say this stuff is actually not good and don't read it. Don't read fucking Chaos Head. Yeah, sure, you can say, oh, I'm curious, I want to know. No, don't waste the 20 hours of your life. Just don't fucking do it. It's not good, right? At a certain point, that kind of process comes into it where, you can choose to do that, but this is kind of a recommendation-heavy medium, and sometimes people out there do have good opinions that are trying to save you time and agony. I would hate to think that someone was like, I'm not going to read D.A. Irae because it is not the 18-plus version. I'm going to wait for that. And they put off this experience, which D.A. Irae is very fucking good. And then they waited and read it, and all they got in exchange for however long they waited was some garbage fucking sex scenes that the majority of the communities of the opinion that they add nothing to the story.
So, in kind of to combat that idea, yeah, sure. Currently, I am waiting to read D.A. Irae. But I'm not feeling like I'm missing out by waiting on reading it because I have so many things to fill that void right now.
And that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that this comment was saying they were waiting on it because of the 18-plus release, which I think is different than waiting on it because you have other shit to read.
What I'm saying is that I do have other shit to read, but in part of why I am waiting on it is because I want to have that content when I read it.
So in that regard, I think as a personal comment from Ralinus Nakanashi, you should put D.A. Irae at the top of your fucking plan to read list because it's really fucking good, and the 18-plus version is not going to be worth the wait. It would be better just to read it right now because it's better than any of the other garbage you're currently reading, like Himawari.
I'm done with Himawari, so that doesn't matter anymore.
I know you are. I know you're done because you just fucking finished it and you should have read DS instead. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, but, sure. But the thing is, regardless, I would go back and try to go to look at those scenes. So I would rather see them in the moment when I'm reading than after the fact. Just personally. I'm going to have this chat again.
Nak, I'm going to remember this, and we're going to have this chat again after the 18-plus version comes out. I'm like, so Nak, so what were your thoughts on the sex scenes that were in DS Irae? And I'm gonna get your opinion on this.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, by all means. But the thing is, I understand that a lot of people, I'm guilty of it too, will voice very strong opinions about the things that they liked or disliked when it comes to recommending things. But ultimately it kind of boils down to, well, this is the way that I want to experience this. And whether someone else thinks that's right or wrong, or it might be the best experience for me, that's for me to decide.
Yeah,
and sure, maybe I'll look back and be like, yeah, I totally could have read this without the porn. And it'll be okay, because I'll be like, yep, that sex scene with whichever heroine totally added nothing. And
I think that's the thing, it's not like I'm trying to tell you what I want you to do because I want to control your life. I'm trying to save you time and effort. And for example, the Chaos Head thing is I can save you for a Chaos Head, 20 hours. Mm-hmm. Chaos Child, 6 or 7. Yeah. If you think that I know what you like and you're like, maybe I should trust Ral on this one, that's 7 hours of your life that you would otherwise not have gotten back.
Yeah, but you see, I'm okay with missing out on an hour of my life on sex scenes, as opposed to 7 hours of my life on worthless routes.
And that's you're entitled to your opinion. No matter how well
how wrong it is.
Again, I know I'm not going to say how wrong it is. I'm just going to say that we'll talk again after you've read DS Irai's sex scenes.
All right.
Well, I guess Nak did speak a bunch of stuff I was going to say, but I will say that I do. yes, like it's basically the reason why I said the comment I said, and maybe in an over the top way is maybe the message I could have said was better, but like ultimately, yes, you do have good intentions of trying to steer people towards what you prefer and what I guess would be quote unquote the objective way to read something, but you know what? The way to objectively read something is not the same for everyone. So all you're doing is, I mean, you may not seem like you are, but you're giving off the impression is, well, if you're not doing it this, like you're trying to say, you're basically saying you're nicely saying, well, if you don't do it this way, you're kind of doing it the wrong way. So you should just read it like this, like, and some people, and sometimes people don't. I mean, it's your opinion. It's great. Other people have their own opinions, and some people just want to wait for the 18 plus version, and then just let them do it.
They can do that.
Well, that's the thing, is that a lot of people will offer these suggestions that are like, no, really, it's better off to do it this way because X reason, and they really are doing it with the best intentions. Like for sure, most of the time when people recommend something, they're like, no, but really, you're better off not doing this. But most of the time, I feel like when you're on the negative receiving end of that, you end up taking it poorly because you're like, oh
man,
this person is telling me that the way I'm doing things is wrong. Ugh.
My opinion is literally just to each their own. Like, if you want your porn, then you wait for your porn. Because that's how you're gonna, like, I'm like Knack. I'm waiting for the 18 plus version of DC Irae, or not waiting, I should say. It's lower on the backlog because of it. And, maybe it will just be garbage sex scenes and they won't apply anything. But,
I've heard there's like one good
one
for reference. Like, I've heard there's like one good one. So at least you got that to look forward to. Okay, then, with that, I think we're basically good here as far as me arguing with literally fucking everyone about editions of games. And let's move right on along to news. My ace reporter now it's Anish time has compiled some news for me for this month. So let's get going. First up, in somewhat controversial news, and again very relevant to the topic we're having right now, Steam has added a new rule that disallows sharing of 18 plus patch information in discussions on their games. For some games, not a big deal. For other games like Subahibi, where like 80% of the game is locked behind a patch, that's a pretty big fucking deal. And I think this is going to be an interesting topic going forwards on how VN marketing goes through with Steam, because for certain things like Subahibi, the sexual or explicit content that would be disallowed on Steam is very much necessary to the story, and Steam simply may not end up being the appropriate distribution platform for these kinds of stories. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. So I remember watching, somebody was streaming the panel where it was revealed how Subahibi on Steam would be handled. And I remember watching that stream and then getting to the part when it's like, so this is what we're going to put on Steam, and then we're going to offer a free patch that has the entire rest of the game. And the audience started applauding so much. I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, no, there's something wrong with this. This is not right. Like, I do not like this thing. And part of it is because it's like, so we're selling on Steam for $30 approximately 15% of a game.
Yeah.
And that's all you get on Steam until you patch it. And Subahibi is a little bit of an exceptional case right now, because there are other things like the first title that I remember seeing that had in the discussion threads on an official capacity, this was the devs saying this, was Honey Pop, actually, which is not really a VN, but is kind of known in the VN circles because it's a dating sim. It's a match 3 dating sim, and I know Zoni is a fan. But it's like literally pinned sticky on the discussions, like, hey guys, after you buy Honey Pop, this is where you need to go to patch in the porn. And that's, I get why Steam says this is not okay, because Steam is still not, and I understandably so, still not okay with having really explicit content on their service. I mean, sure, you can call out certain things, like, Ghakthun has got the H scene still in it, or to go into mainstream gamings, like The Witcher has got animated sex scenes in it, but you can't see, that. But it's there, and I played The Witcher 1 and 2, and I did not have to go anywhere to be able to see my animated tits.
Congratulations.
Well, I think that's also a different. A lot of them are a different case because in a VN, the the sexual content is a lot of it. Like The Witcher, the whole point is fantasy setting.
Well, the whole point is making sure I nail all the girls every chapter. What are you talking about, Zoe? But did you play The Witcher? Like, that's the point. Come on, it's collecting their cards. Come on, get with the picture.
Okay. As for disallowing it, like, in the discussions, I think it's silly, but mostly just because people will get around it anyway. Like, if you don't put it in the discussion, they'll find, like, a different way to say, here, this is how you can get your,
But
H card.
what about that person who buys Subahibi for $30, reads 2 chapters of it, and says, oh, well, that was it then. Okay.
I was cheating.
What about that person?
To be fair, Rabbit Hole 2 is still pretty good, but
from what I understand, the very best that Subahibi has to offer is at the very end.
Yeah. I guess for that, for that person, yeah, it's a weird case because I feel like this sort of thing should be allowed because it's just in the discussions. Like, if people are, going all the way into the discussions, they can probably go to some other site and find, the way to get the H scenes. So, in that sense, I think it would be. It's both silly that they're not allowing it, but it's also not really a detriment, I guess. It's tricky. Like, Steam, for all intents and purposes, is supposed to be basically an all ages platform, even though you can get games where there's R16, R18 content, but. Yeah.
So it goes. Next item I have on the news here: second worst girl from Little Busters has received an anime adaptation Kickstarter as Kud, who is actual fucking garbage, has gotten an anime adaptation of Kud Wafter, and adult visual novel produced by Key after Little Busters. Holy shit! They're like, hey, let's make the lolly have sex scenes. Thanks, Key. Thanks, Little Busters.
I'm
that's
assuming the anime won't have
no,
sex scenes.
no commentary on this one. Good. Okay, moving
That's
right along.
Actually, the weirdest thing about the fact that Little Busters got a fan disc is that of all the heroines to pick, they picked Kud.
Really? Like, holy shit! Like,
that's very shocking to me. Like, as soon as I saw there's a fan disc, like, oh, cool, there's a fan disc for Little Busters. I like that. Oh, it's a bunch of
I might dislike Little Busters, but man, I can at least recognize there are better heroines than Kud out there. Like, some of those characters are decent, right? Like, holy shit. It makes me sad that of all the ones to get their own little bullshit spinoff, it wasn't, one of the good ones.
So if Kuragaya had gotten a spinoff,
exactly. Listen, yeah. I want to not think about this, so moving right along. The second half of Umineko has been released on Steam and Manga Gamer as of the 17th, 18th. Awesome. Very exciting. Umineko is great. Everyone should read it. I'm not going to talk too much about this on news because there's more about that later. We've got a note on the Hoshizora no Memoria backers doing beta testing for the Steam release due to the engine not usually working on English locale. That has already happened with a full release of the game slated for January 2018. Ange, I think I saw you in game on that one. How is it going?
Pretty good. I haven't done like a sit down and read. Like, when I took those screenshots, I kind of just picked some random things. Like, I haven't actually tried to reread the whole thing, but as far as the translation goes, I've seen discussions about it after the screenshot. It seems like the new translation, I guess is a little less literal, made a little more wording descriptive, I guess. But I think it's good so far. But
Yeah, I saw those screenshots comparing the old fan TL versus the current translation on the official release, and it seems like it might be a little less literal, but the benefit of something being a little more liberal is that it also can be a little more natural. And a lot of those lines read more naturally now to me as I was reading the comparison. So I think overall the TL is probably pretty good. There were a couple moments that were like, oh, okay, that's odd. But
I'm generally I generally prefer the style that Sekai was going for in the new translation. Like I mean, literal. I mean that this could be a whole other podcast, but I guess I'm generally for like a not too literal, little liberal, but not too liberal. I guess kind of middle, but that's just me.
Oh, yeah.
We've also got an Umineko compilation visual novel coming with a brand new episode to be released, taking place roughly around Chiru. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this, as I kind of feel like the original 8 chapters of Umineko are a pretty solid, complete experience on their own with a very particular message that Ryukushio 7 seems like he has kind of wanted to change a little bit as time has gone on. So I'm going to be curious to see how that actually turns out.
Yeah, that was my thing. When I heard about it first, I was like, why?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like Steins Gate Elite. Like,
yes,
why?
Exactly. Same
Why?
thing I was thinking. Yeah. We're just like, okay, that's nice, but other than trying to make some more money, why?
Yeah, we've got Visual Conference coming back January 14th, 2018. They're hiring people who've taken part of development and translation cycle to speak up. So I haven't really followed these too much, but I'm curious to see if they get interesting guests, interesting speakers, see what the deal actually is. I might probably pay attention to this one now that I'm kind of more involved in the community. So hopefully that should be a nice little conference there.
Well, I've got a few friends who are doing speeches and talks for it, and they seem like they're really into it. So I think it'll be a good time if you want to.
Yeah, it sounded like the first one was reasonably successful for the people who attended and did stuff with it. I know Nai actually gave a speech. Nai, who was on our first episode, gave a speech piece on it during the first one, and it seemed like a pretty good thing for devs to participate in. So it was a pretty cool thing that happened.
Well, that's always good. Like it would be nice to have more ways, especially for EVN devs, to get some more exposure. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got the first Utawareru Mono VN getting a remake for more gameplay and system similar to 2 and 3. This is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, as Utawareru Mono is on my planned read list for some time now, but I just have not gotten around to it.
It's actually on my permanent backlog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but yeah, that's how it goes.
The Grisaia Phantom Trigger project has a Volume 4 Kickstarter up, which has already been funded. I still don't really know what the whole deal with the Phantom Trigger thing is. It seems like they just decided to kind of cash in on the franchise with all ages VNs.
So I didn't actually realize we were up to Volume 4 on Phantom Trigger already.
Yeah, right?
I
what
thought
happened to
1 and 2 was it. Where was Volume 3? When did that happen? I missed that completely.
Volume 3 was done in Indiegogo, which is why some people might have missed it.
Oh, no wonder I have no... What the fuck were they thinking? Why did they do that?
I have no clue, because, I mean, I've kickstarted for all of them because, I actually like what they're doing, like going for a more all ages approach and keeping the fan service to the merchandise, but
it's true. If you don't have the fan service in the game, you can sell more documents.
I have no clue why they did the third one on Indiegogo and then moved back to Kickstarter for the fourth one.
That's strange, yeah.
Maybe the third one didn't go as well because people
it could
didn't
be.
see it.
Like I say, I literally had no idea Volume 3 had happened already. When I mean, Ange compiles all the news for us each time, and I looked at Volume 4. I was like, oh, cool, Volume 4. But wait, where was Volume 3? I don't remember that at all. Huh.
Okay, so moving along, we've got Sekai Project now has a tracker on Trello to keep track of translation progress and licensing requests. I looked around there a little bit. There's some stuff, for example, Baldur, they're just not listing because not a lot of details. A lot of other stuff is very much like PR speak, people requesting shit and being like, we'll look into that. But I do like the direction they're taking, and hopefully they keep things up to date there, because I think it will be useful to be able to see like what the actual status is on their process, especially because Sekai kind of has that rep of just
Yeah, they kind of have a track record of
I think it's more of an about time sort of thing, since Manga Game has been doing this for ages, where they'll just post on their Twitter like, this is how everything's going every week. Or you can go to their page and it's like, Sakai probably should have had this ages ago, but it's good that they have it now.
They did have a page for a while, didn't they? That had the translation.
It was like a really
I feel
crappily
like it wasn't,
bad
but it was
meme.
yeah. But this is a little better and ideally a little more transparent about their progress, which is good because I personally I'm not one of those people who's like, Sekai is the worst, because there's some people out there who are like that. But it's good to have what's going on more visible, because we're a very needy fan base, let's be honest. And more transparency is definitely good.
Agreed. Visual Novel Maker has now been released on Steam, which was something that I was at least curious to look into, as it is now competing with other tools like Ren'Py. I might be a little bit biased given my programming background, but the high price tag on Visual Novel Maker just really makes me question if it's going to be worthwhile or not.
Mm-hmm.
I like more tools coming out to make VNs, but I feel like given that there are free tools out there that can do more stuff, I mean, I guess if the barrier to programming is that high, then maybe then Visual Novel Maker is more up your alley. But at the same time, like, there's other tools that are out there. So
yeah, I've seen a few of the devs and Dev talk about it, and it's mostly just sort of been, well, we're already using Ren'Py or we're already using Unity, so it's like, why? You know, like, why bother paying however much for this when we can do Ren'Py and Unity? It's because there are plenty of resources to help.
I do think it appeals to a certain type of person who is looking to create visual novels. I don't know how widespread that the mindset that looks at Visual Novel Maker and says, this is what I want to use is. I think it's, from what I've heard of it, it's probably the best paid option available now. But again, it's like, there are free options available that you're going to have to learn something in Visual Novel Maker too. It's not going to be programming, but you're going to have to learn something about using it. So unless you're like really, really opposed to learning how to do some light programming, Ren'Py is probably the superior option from all the talk I've seen about it.
Yeah.
Not to say anything bad about Visual Novel Maker, because I literally don't know anything about it, having looked into it.
I have no idea how good it actually is. I just know that lots of people are just saying, like, we're going to stick with Ren'Py Ren'Py or Unity or whatever we're already using.
All right, I think that about wraps it up here for news for this episode. Up next, we have my close personal friend and leader of the Umineko cult, CTOM42, shilling the obvious visual novel that CTOM42 would shill, Umineko no Nakokoro ni, a personal favorite of mine. So CTOM, go ahead and take it away.
Hello, this is CTOM42, here to shill Umineko no Nakokoro ni, also known as When the Seagulls Cry. Umineko consists of the third and fourth entries in the When They Cry franchise, It is written by Ryuki Shio 7, the author of Higurashi no Nakokoro ni, which comprises the first 2 entries in the franchise. Both parts of Umineko are now available from Manga Gamer and on Steam. This release features an updated translation, as well as an option to read the original Japanese and a choice between the original sprites and new Manga Gamer sprites. The translation was updated by Witch Hunt, the same team that made the original fan translation. This update was made not just with full knowledge of the entire story and mystery, but also with direct conversations with Ryukishi himself, making it the definitive English version of the game. It is also worth noting that there are fan patches to add in the PS3 sprites for those who don't like the 2 options available, as well as PS3 backgrounds and CGs, and, most importantly, voice acting. Umineko has an all-star voice cast, including VAs such as Ono Daisuke, Ohara Sayaka, Kugumi Irae, and Miyuki Sawashiro. At its heart, Umineko is a mystery novel and a battle of wits. However, it spans many other genres, including elements of fantasy, adventure, thriller, romance, and much more. Umineko is a kinetic novel, which means it tells a linear story with no real choices. Despite this, it is a highly engaging work, actively challenging its readers to think about its mysteries and themes. It is not a work for someone who simply wants to sit back and go along for the ride, as Umineko really does benefit from constantly thinking and re-evaluating everything you've been told. Each of its 8 episodes adds more layers to the already complex narrative, delivering a truly unique experience that only improves on a second or third read. The fact that its fans are willing to reread this mammoth work at all, with it clocking in between 80 and 150 hours, depending upon your reading speed and desire to listen to voices, is a testament to how enjoyable and engaging an experience it provides. There really is no other work like it out there, and it's something I firmly believe anyone looking for an intellectually stimulating work of fiction should check out. Anyway, I'd just like to thank the members of the Broadcast Club for giving me the opportunity to plug this fantastic visual novel, and this is once again CTom42 signing off.
Excellent. Always glad to hear from you, C-Tom, about a fantastic visual novel that everyone should read. That is going to conclude this episode. Thank you, Zonijo, for joining us this month.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed my time working on this podcast, and we've learned some new things about this.
Glad to hear it. It's really our core goal here is just that whole personal discovery, right? Is a really important thing we like to bring.
You thought you knew this person, but in reality...
yeah, so many fun new things.
Can I forget I learned that?
Honestly, I wish I could. I should go, take some forget-me-nows, and just be done.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again, Zoni. For all of our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. Please join us again next month. We'll be talking about piracy in the visual novel industry. I've been Ralana Tricolor.
I've been Nakanashi.
I'm Ange Time.
And we will see you all next